Hello kings, queens, and other royalty. It's NewFoundKing here. I just wanted to say I had a lot of fun doing the last Reddit reading video that I did, so I wanted to try again and do another one. So yeah, here we go. So this post might be a bit of a longer one. It's titled Near TPK to a Hole in the Ground. Alright, going to establish a few things at the outset. This happened a while ago, so a few of the specific details may be a little fuzzy. System, Pathfinder 1st Edition. Game, homebrew campaign based on an isometric CRPG. Me, GM. Characters, Paladin, Cleric, Bard, Blood Rager, Wizard, absent for session in question, and an NPC, DMPC, Rogue being controlled by a player at the store. Basically, given to the party so they had one and allowed to be in control of the party at times. So the party was doing a dungeon crawl early in the campaign. That was meant to get them some experience and through the early levels, before going off and getting into the meat of the story. It was a simple goblin and a bandit hideout that they had to clear out. They'd done okay through the early part, though they'd lost a character in the first encounter because of a near max damage short bow crit on the party's sorcerer. I roll my dice out where they can be seen, or else I might have fudged to spare the sorcerer. I'd introduced the bard in the dungeon pretty quickly. They just finished resting and were all suited up to keep going from the room. They came to a short hallway in the cave complex that looked to have a crude construction. It teed off at the end to another hallway with 3 doors lining the opposite wall. The construction was crude, but the doors were made of metal. At the end of this hallway, to the left, there was a 5-foot wide hole in the ground that disappeared into darkness. The doors were each locked, but the party had already found a set of keys to unlock them. They proceeded to begin opening the doors. The one furthest to the right had a zombie. The leader of the bandits was an inspiring necromancer and had succeeded in animating a corpse via a scroll, but hadn't managed to get it under control yet, so had locked it in there. With a paladin and cleric of Sarenrae in the party, they were able to make quick work of the zombie. The next room was empty, save for a single dire rat that had managed to worm its way inside, and the third held a body wearing a nice looking breastplate, masterwork. No one really took much damage from the encounters, nor were they really meant to. Then, the player had playing the rogue for the day, who was a buddy who'd be leaving shortly for reasons, so couldn't commit to stay the full campaign, turned to the bard's player, Rogue. Here, hold this rope around yourself and I'll lower you down into the hole. Bard. Okay. They looked down the hole, and I described it as foul-smelling, with the sound of flies echoing up from within, but looked to be deep. With that, the bard began to rappel down, with the rogue holding onto the rope while the other characters debated about who should get the masterwork breastplate. I described the stench as getting stronger and stronger the further they went down, and bugs flew past the bard, mostly flies. Eventually through, they reached the bottom about 40 feet down, and he settled into a soft, moist ground that smelt of several-day-old excrement and trash. There were webs all around, and as he began looking around, he brushed against some of the webbing, causing all of the spiders in them to pour out and onto him. It was that point initiative was rolled. The spider swarm began biting into the bard, dealing a few points of damage, but more importantly, poison. The unfortunate bard failed the save versus poison and ended up starting to take strength damage from the poison. The rogue decided to start pulling up the bard, but because of his thrashing around, making it hard, I required a strength check, which the rogue passed, getting the bard about 10 feet off the ground of the pit. The other players just watched this round pass on by. So the next few rounds proceed. The bard gets pulled up about 20 feet, and the rogue's dice choose this moment to go cold. The bard ends up tying himself to the rope as the strength damage is starting to accumulate in the damage. About round 3, the other players decide to join in, to start rolling to aid another on the rogue's strength checks to pull the bard up out of the hole. Round 6 rolls around, and this is when things go to hell in a handbasket. The spider swarm's damage caused the bard to become unconscious. He fails his save versus poison again, and he is at like 7-8 points of strength damage out of his 10 strength score PC. The rogue rolls a 1 on the strength check, and this was a group that liked to play with fumbles, as we had always done so the rope slides free of the rogue's hands. I have the others make a reflex save to be able to take the lead in time to prevent the bard from falling, but the only one to make the DC 10 check was the Blood Rager, so I have him make a strength check to stop the bard's descent. A natural 1. So I give him the option, either he can hold onto the rope, or it could just slide through his hands with the force of the bard's weight dropping on it. He chooses to hold onto the rope, So I describe how he grabs onto the rope, but the sudden weight pulls him forward, making setting his feet impossible, and he stumbles towards the hole. I let him have the choice of a reasonable check to avoid falling into the hole, and he makes, I think, an acrobatics, and he rolled exactly what he needed to pass. So I described how he managed to catch himself by throwing a hand against the wall on the far side of the hole, so his toes are on the lip of one side, and the other hand is braced against the far side, barely keeping him from falling in. The bard manages to survive the fall, despite being already unconscious, but he was left pretty badly hurt. In an effort to try to be nice to him, I ruled that the spider swarm remained at the 30-foot mark and went up and onto the Blood Rager. This was me trying to put it into a position where the rest of the party could deal with it and it wouldn't be killing the bard. So a couple more rounds tick by and the spider swarm rolls amazing on the Blood Rager, who can't make the DC 10 check to push himself upright. The others start arguing about what to do. Now I understand, as a GM, talking is a free action, but at the same time, carrying on the level of conversation the rogue, cleric, and paladin were having was pushing it. So I gave them a couple warnings before saying they were passing their turns. Then the bard hit negative 15 HP, 16 con. The cleric decides to try and jump in the hole, planning to try and slide down like a monk with a hand and foot on each wall. There was just one problem. There was a Blood Rager covering the hole. Since he couldn't move and thus allow the cleric to pass through the square, I had the cleric decide on reflex, acrobatics, or escape artist to try and squeeze past. I think he rolled a 2, so he jumped on the Blood Rager's back. I had the Blood Rager attempt to resist, which I was worried about because of the strength damage he'd be taking, but natural 20. So I breathed a sigh of relief, and then the spider swarm went again, and dropped the Blood Rager. and then the spider swarm went again, and dropped the Blood Rager, who fell. The cleric on his back also fell. Not that it mattered too much, as then I proceeded to roll 4d6 of falling damage. 15 damage. It was enough to kill the bard and the Blood Rager outright. The cleric survived. The spider swarm was crushed under the Blood Rager as well. Then, seeing as combat was over, the paladin and rogue pulled the cleric up and fished out the other two. Looking back, I wasn't expecting it to go downhill so quickly, or really for them to even go down the poo chute in the first place. But the incident has affectionately become known as the 5-foot hole incident among my groups. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the read. I really enjoyed that post. There was a part where the cleric fell on the Blood Rager, and then the OP, or the poster, was like, this is good. Everything is gonna work out now. And then the Blood Rager died, and they fell down the hole, and the cleric went with him. Like, I think I caught it, like, recording and stuff, and I think I might leave it in. You probably heard it already, but, like, yeah, this is me pointing it out, because I enjoyed that section of the post. Yeah, so I appreciate anyone who took the time to actually watch it all the way through. I love you guys and hope you have a good day and or night. Bye.